Ryan Austin, welcome to The Real Build. How you doing today, brother?
Good, man. Good. Just glad to be here. I'm definitely excited to be here, man. It's not every day I do a podcast, so it's not every day that I get to be the guest of a podcast person. So I really appreciate you having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. You and I have known each other for a little bit now, and through obviously Top Contractor School too, which we can get into for a little bit. But you touched on your podcast too. We'll definitely talk about that because you're doing some big things with that. But what I always like to get started with is your background. So who is Ryan Austin?
Well, Ryan Austin is just turned 40 last year, which is a milestone in itself. But it's the real Ryan Austin. I always call it is the passionate person, the one that grew up in a small town, Oxford. We had about 20,000 people at the time. I think we're at like 30,000 now. But I grew up in a pretty rough patch. My mom and dad got divorced. My dad ended up moving away for work and really just wasn't around when I was younger. So I was pretty much raised my mother as a single mother, but also my grandparents took me in and pretty much raised me as a kid. And with that being said, is they were entrepreneurs. And, so as growing up, my grandpa really just, resonated with me because I wanted to learn. I always wanted to learn. I always asked him a ton of questions. So, growing up, it was always a learning curve with me. I always asked him how you did things, what you did, because he was an entrepreneur. And I had that, I believe I had that entrepreneur, skill in my brain that, I wanted to do something with my life. So growing up pretty young, at 4 or 5 years old, when my parents divorced, I had to raise my brother. And as raising your brother, as you grow up pretty quick, and so I had to really just be that instill that mentor for him, as a young kid. And I remember a story is when we were younger is my brother was always that attached to my mom. And I always used to go up to him and say, it's going to be all right. We're going to do this together, and, we're going to hang out together and we're going to play. And him and I did a lot of sports growing up. We, growing up in a small town, it's, I had a lot of friends, and when I had friends, they helped me out. I got into sports at a young age. And when I got into sports at a young age, I got that, that competitive edge, and when you get that competitive edge, nothing can stop you. So, at the age of, 12 years old, I started my first business. And that's why I wanted to go into this, is because, I'll never forget the day I did, because I wanted to make some money. And so I went to my grandfather and I said, I want to start a business. And it was me and my buddy and Andy Dillon, which, he's a very successful person nowadays. And he owns a large roofing company in Texas. And, we started this, it's called RNA Lawns. And what's pretty funny about that is it's RNA, which it was Ryan and Andy, but Ryan Austin is RRA. So it's like, we just did that back in the day because we thought that was pretty cool. But I remember our first job. And this is why I wanted to tell this story is I remember our first job, and it was like an acre of leaves. And I walked up to the door, and I'll never forget it. I was so nervous. I was shaking. I was like, oh my gosh, I gotta go up to the door. So I would knock on the door and I'm like, hey, do you want your leaves done? And he's like, well, how much? And I said, $15. Dude, it took us the whole day to do those leaves for $15. And as an entrepreneur at the time, my mindset was like, I want to make money, but I was like, this took too long. Is it really worth it? So then I started price structuring all my stuff. So I knew, back in the day that I was a very competitive person. I knew that I was going to be that person that really just drove and just did whatever I had to do to make money. And, and I think that with working with different companies, as a young kid, I was in the restaurant business at 14 years old. I made management by the time I was 16. So it's like those things that I was always that driven person. So that's pretty much Ryan, is that person that really just was driven as a young kid because he went through hardships. I didn't have a father that was around. So that was one of those things that, my grandfather instilled the hard work ethic. And, just if you want to be somebody, you got to do something. And in order to do something, you got to start. And so a lot of people don't just start, that first step of like, everybody always says, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Well, do they really start? So if you're in a position where, you want to start something, you just gotta just do it, just like this podcast, like you had to start at a certain time. And if you didn't start, you'd be saying, well, I'm going to do a podcast. I'm going to do a podcast. I'm going to do a podcast. But you just got to start. So that's Ryan in a nutshell with the really just the competitive edge, the guy that just wants to make things happen.
And going off what you said, I think a lot of us as entrepreneurs are competitive. We all kind of come from, not everybody, but a sports background, a competitive background, obviously you had kind of that entrepreneurial upbringing too with your grandparents. I had it with obviously my dad. My dad was a workaholic, blue collar, started from nothing, worked his way up, always made me work as a kid since I was a little kid. And that's why I have such respect for not only the business that I'm a part of, but also just working in general and working up to get to where I want to be. So I can relate with you. And also I can relate with you too. As a kid, I've talked about this in the past that I had little businesses. I didn't even think they were businesses, but I was selling used golf balls on the side of a golf course as a little kid trying to hustle money, and just.
My kids do that now. That's what's funny is during COVID, my kids, they're like, Dad, we got to go to the golf course. We got to go to the golf course because I live on a golf course. And they're like, let's go here, let's go there. Dude, they got like, I want to say like 6 5-gallon buckets during COVID back in 2020. We just went around and, they were selling golf balls, which it was I was a sucker. So I'm like, well, if you get golf balls, I'll pay $0.25 a piece for them. And then I'll pay $1 for Pro Vs. And so here they are going out for Pro Vs and doing all this other stuff. But it's like,
$0.25 a piece for a Pro V is that's a nice grab, man.
Well, here's the thing is they caught on quick. So they charged me $1 for a Pro V. So, which is fine. I want them to learn and I want them to understand things. So, I think it's too is if you instill that in your kids at a young age, like, I mean, like young, like when I was, 4 or 5 years old, my grandpa was instilling things. I remember going in, he owned a party store in downtown Auburn Hills, Michigan. It was called Happy Hour. And I'd go there and I would hang out and I would be like, Grandpa, I need to make money. What can I do to make money? And he always wanted to, every time I did something, he wanted to show me how to do it, train me how to do it, and educate me. So by the time I was 5 and 6 years old, I knew what an ROI was, which most people as kids don't know that kind of thing. He was like, well, if you're going to get a rake, it's going to be, at the time it was probably $3 or $4. He's like, well, how are you going to pay for that rake? You have cost, you have this. So like back in the day is if you can learn that, or if you can teach your kids that, you will develop an amazing, person in the business. And if they have that competitive edge, no matter what they do in life, they're going to be successful. Mm-hmm. And that's the best thing is you can look at your kids and you can say, you know what, that person has a drive. He's competitive. No matter what he does in life, he will be successful. And I think that's a testament to like with that drive is that even if you're not driven, you can still teach your kids to those simple fundamentals. And if they're, have any competitive edge, because my son, dude, I'll tell you, my son is just like, I never pushed him to do anything, never pushed him to do sports, never pushed him to do anything. And he is so competitive. He comes home and watches YouTube videos of sports, baseball, basketball, football every day and wants to analyze it. I know for a fact that kid's going to be successful because everything he does is very analyzed, very detailed, and very like driven, meaning like he's going to do it and this is what's going to happen. So, if you can instill that in your kids, man, look out, and I think that's what we're missing today and age is we need to keep instilling that stuff. And so it doesn't skip generations, because we have a generation right now that's out there in the millennials that I feel is a very powerful thing. They're just doing things different, so if we can take out what they're doing and we can do it and put it into our businesses, it's a very, very amazing thing to be able to get those people to do exactly what I didn't do starting my business out. So, I just, I wanted to share that with you because it's like, you can instill that in your kids and you can make them successful. It's just, you got to keep instilling and teaching them.
I 1,000,000,000% agree with you too. And I don't have kids yet, but I'm 100% going to do exactly what my dad did with me and make me work and make me do the outdoors, not just sit not just sitting on an iPad all day and
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
it's just
You
it's
know
we
what?
can
I think that's the way of the future though, is like if we can do things, not only technology based, but if we can do things like if we can teach our kids to just be compassionate about something and be driven about something and really teach them how to do those things. Because I think as a parent, we don't listen a lot. We try to say, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this. So we have a rule in our household that, when they come to me and ask me for advice, that I always ask them, do you want me to listen or do you want me to give you advice? And I think that's a very powerful thing in a relationship with kids, because they will come to me no matter what. Because if they come to me with information, I can give them that, hey, I'll just listen. Or if you want advice, I can sit here and I can wait and you can give me all that information, but I can analyze it and then I can tell you what my advice is. And I think that's really key with kids is just stepping back a little bit and really just, pushing that out and saying, hey, I'll help you. I'm here for you. Just communicate with me.
Mhm.
Be a better communicator. Teach your kids to be a better communicator. And I think that's what, what's been amazing with me is because, I have, 4 kids, I have a 14, a 12, a 10. So my 14 and 12-year-old are girls, and they're beautiful girls. They play travel national volleyball. And then and they're very competitive, but they were never competitive at first. They basically molded into it. And I think what that was is building that confidence in them, just having that little confidence to get better and better each time. Now, my son, he came out of the womb literally throwing the ball. I mean, he literally wanted to play, but I never pushed him. And that made him want to drive even harder and harder. And because so he tells me, he goes, hey, Dad, I want to play at Michigan State. And I said, well, hey, if you want to play at Michigan State, you know what Tom Izzo does, right? He wants you to practice. How many shots are you doing a day? I don't know, 10, 15. I go times it by 10 or 20. And I said, then you might have a chance to get to Michigan State. So he's out there in the dark most days, shooting baskets, doing those kind of things. He has a pop shot in his room and he's shooting. That is instilling and putting that mindset into those kids, because unless you tell your kids what can make them better, they will never get better. And so it doesn't mean they're going to do it, but you got to point them in the right direction. So I wanted to share that with you because it's like I've been noticing a lot of that with my kids, and everybody always says, like, why are your kids so good? Well, I don't know. It's like me doing the right things and me communicating with my kids. I think that's the most powerful thing is if you can communicate with your kids can communicate with others.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and this kind of segues into what you're saying is 100% correct, and it kind of segues into your business too. But before I go into your business, let's talk about your business too. I want to, and how did you get involved with Birmingham Sealcoat and the construction industry in general? How did that begin? Because a lot of the stuff you're saying as far as what you're implementing in your kids too, obviously you're implementing that into your business as well, and how you're structuring it and so on as well.
I think this is a great story, and it gives me goosebumps every time I tell it. Is when you're driven, you want to go to the top as quick as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like in life, when you went to a business, it was always the same mentality of the boss. It was like, you get a raise and then you keep going, and then you get another raise and you keep going. And then finally there's like, you topped out. And that topped out, if that mindset, that if the boss tells you that, hey, this is all you're going to make, your mindset shuts down and loses that drive. It's like, well, if I'm not gonna make any more money, what am I gonna do next? So people start to look elsewhere, and then their mind's not in their business. And then what happens is they either leave their business or they stay in it and they're just stuck. Mm-hmm. And so what I want to tell you about this is what I did coming out of high school, working full time, eventually living in a house by myself, at a very, very young age, paying rent, working at nights, going to school. It was one of those things that I was driven. So I had to make the bills. I suffered a lot. I mean, I lived off literally $40 a week for food. I mean, it was like very, very stringent. I went over to buddies' houses. I eat lunch, lunch at my buddies. My grandparents cooked me dinner. I tried to get as every meal as possible. Even being in the restaurant business, I brought stuff home. So it was very, very structured and very tight. But when I went in out of high school and I really started getting into the restaurant business, and then eventually I got into the machine world, CNC world, I was working for a guy, and great people, and it was a great thing, but I got topped out. It was one of those things that, like, you only make a certain amount, and they're saying, well, you can't make any more money. And so my mentality is as well, I never wanted to do that to somebody. So I was like, you know what? At that moment, it drove me to say, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm going to start my own business. And the reason why that is because you have nobody to blame but yourself if you have a business. So if you want to succeed, if you want to go after something, you have no limits in a business. When you start a business, you can, like, there should be no ceilings. That's what I always tell people. If you're living in a room, 12 by 12 room with a little ceiling, that's where you're going to be your whole life. But, the world's big. The world has no ceilings. So you can go out in the world and you can make things happen. And it's crazy what things do. Mm-hmm. If you go out and say, you know what, I'm going to start a company, I'm going to be a multi-million-dollar company in the next 3 years. You can do that. There's nothing stopping you, because I had no funding. The thing is what I did was I built a structure, and what the structure was giving nobody a ceiling. I look at life as like, you get what you pay for, you get what you pay for. So if you have a good employee, they're an asset. Okay. Your employees build your company. You don't build your company. You're the leader, but you don't build your company. I'm sitting in this chair right now, and I have 15 people in an off season right now working in my office. I have mechanics. I have all these people working, and I'm sitting doing a podcast with you, and I'm still making money. And I think that's a testament is you can go anywhere in life. You just have to have that drive. And with me starting this company is when he told me that, this is what's going to happen. And he was always gone, on trips or doing that. And I was doing what I had to do to make this business run. I said, how hard was it to leave that job? It was easy. That was the pivotal moment in my career to say, you know what, I just got to do what I got to do, and I got to go for it. And I just stopped. And I literally said, you know what, I'm going to give you a couple months, and, I'm going to go do my own thing. And so I started an asphalt repair business, which is crazy. Like, why would you choose an asphalt repair business? Well, to be honest with you, I live in Michigan. So, everybody always, hears about how bad the roads are here in Michigan, the frost, the unthawing frost. We can put down a new road in Michigan, and within a year or two, there's cracks. So like, it was something that I looked at and I researched. It's like either be a plumber, electrician, or, start a company of that, or an asphalt. And I'm like, asphalt. What do asphalt guys get in Michigan? They get about 3 months off in the winter. That sounds good, right? Well, guess what? I have to work like 7, 8, 9 months hard, and then I get 3 months off. Sounds pretty good to me. Well, that's what happened is I got into asphalt, and I literally worked my butt off for 9 to 10 months. And I had 2 to 3 months off. And those 2 to 3 months off were just time to reflect and start looking at your business. And I think a lot of businesses, they're so engulfed in the day-to-day, every single day being the same, they don't have any time to reflect. So sometimes you have to slow down to speed up. You hear that all the time with Brian, is like, sometimes you got to slow down to speed up. And we talk about this in my office all the time, is like, if we're moving too fast and things are being missed and stuff, sometimes you just got to stop what you're doing and then really focus. So what I did was when I transitioned into this repair business, I wanted to make sure that I was never treated as a number. I was never treated as just a dollar amount. I wanted to bring people in my company, and I wanted to grow them to the point where they could have, a successful life. And they weren't working for the man. They weren't working for corporate. They weren't working for a boss that didn't care about them. So as a young entrepreneur, when I started this business, we started this business in 2004. Okay. So in 2004, things were still up, but in 2008, things like crashed. Literally crashed. People were losing their homes. People weren't spending money. And what we did is in 2007, 2008, we took this business and doubled and tripled and tripled and doubled every single year in a bad economy. because everybody had this short mindset of like, oh, let's grip up, let's stop what we're doing. And my thing was like, guess what? Let's gas, full pedal, 100 miles an hour, let's go. And so that's what we're doing now is we're creating, you know, a thing in our company right now where it's like the people are starting to like, ooh, gas, this. And we're like, you know what? This is time to move. Let's go. Let's 100 miles an hour. Let's start doing this. Let's do this. Let's do this. And I think that's what makes an entrepreneur and somebody that, you know, wants to drive and make people better, because I have really high goals for my company and big targets for my company. It's only to make the people in my company better. And when they get better, they make more money. And when they make more money, they can do things with it. They can retire earlier. They can, like, my whole mission is to help one person. We talk about this all the time. This is my one goal is to help one person every single day. And that's it. That's it. If we all did that in this country, in this world, could you imagine what would happen? It would literally be a positive environment. We'd go out and we'd enjoy life, and there wouldn't be all this negative everywhere. And so what I'm trying to do is instill in every single person that I touch is pass it on. Make sure you have that ripple effect. Pass that on. And so that's kind of how I got into the asshole world, is like I was just sick and tired of the mundane boss that did nothing but just force you to do things, tell you what you couldn't do, and put a ceiling over you. You know, if you can do that in your company, and I think that your guests will appreciate this, is you know, never restrict anybody from making more money. Develop something on how they can make more money. You know, because in a company, you know, if you're $1 million company and you have, let's say, 10 employees, if you have 10 employees and they want to get better, you might have to go to 3 million. So set that vision and that mission with your 10 people and focus on that and say, hey guys, this is what we got to do. This is the sacrifices that we got to do. But guess what? The end game and the journey and the mission is here. Are you guys willing to do that? And I think that's what brings the culture together. And we'll talk about this, I'm sure, later, but it's like, you have to have that like drive, and you have to have that leadership, because people follow people that are driven, you know? So I think that's in a nutshell how I got into this world. And, you know, I mean, I'm known as the asphalt guy now. And to be honest with you, I'm trying to transition myself out of that. I'm trying to transition myself into, you know, the Power of Helping People podcast, you know, the guy that comes and wants to just help people. You know, I say this all the time. I've made millions of dollars worth of mistakes, and I still make mistakes. I want to try to prevent that from somebody else making $1 million mistake or $2 million mistake or $3 million mistake, because ultimately the whole end game is for everybody to succeed. And if you can't have that mindset, you're not going to have people following you. So I know that's a long-winded question or a long-winded answer, but I wanted to dive into that because it's so like perfect for it.
Well, it is important. And in a few points I want to touch on with what you said too, is giving nobody a ceiling too. And so many businesses do not think that way. They hire and they hire and they hire, and their turnover is just, I mean, let's use a big company like Starbucks. I mean, I grab a cup of coffee quite a bit at the same Starbucks, and there's always different employees almost every week. And there's some that have been there for a while, maybe one or two that I've known at the specific Starbucks for a while and so on. But the employee, the cycle that they go through is just insane. You know, companies like that and these big companies, because they aren't putting in that effort of kind of focusing on the actual employee and giving them, there shouldn't be a ceiling, setting the expectation of where they could be, how they need to get there, and so on, like you are doing too. Because like you said, employees build your company. And more people need to realize that as business owners. I mean, we all struggle with it. We all struggle with control as business owners too. We want to control everything. We want to do everything. And sometimes we got to let go. I struggle with that, and not just in business, but in everything, finances, all this stuff. You know, I like to have control of what I have. And sometimes you just got to let somebody else deal with it, so you don't, like the stock market bloodbath we're seeing, you don't stress over it, and you can focus on other things out in like your business and your family and so on. So, I mean, I took those points. Those are huge, what you said too. Um, and then also, like one thing which is huge to me, and I've been thinking about this, a lot of people in the construction world now are getting worried. They're seeing what's happening. Shortages are continually happening, price increases are happening, and a lot of people are starting to get worried and kind of pull that foot off the gas too. And I was just thinking about this the other day. I'm like, I've been wanting to hire a video guy, and you second guess yourself. You're like, maybe now isn't the right time. Maybe I should put that focus somewhere else on. But then I'm like, you know what? Everybody else that's not going to be doing that, I can be doing that when things do slow down, because more than likely they're going to. What goes up must come down. And this market's just been too insane the last few years too, to where, okay, once things do slow down, I need to be prepared and already have that content and all that marketing and all that continuously going out too, and just keep that foot going and keep moving forward. So, I mean, I love what you said.
It's almost
Those are
like
a few
it's
things.
almost like that thing that out of sight, out of mind. Like if people step off the gas and
Yeah.
and they stop with their marketing, they stop with their videos, they stop with their Facebook lives, their Instagram lives, all this stuff, their TikToks, whatever they're doing, their LinkedIn's. If they put their foot off the ghetto or the pedal, they look at it and like, they might not know they're around. So what I do is like,
Yeah.
I up my media, I up my other stuff, I up my videos, I up all that stuff, because here's the thing is we're here to stay, and we're
Yeah.
a good company and growing company. And I think the biggest thing is instead of tightening up, be more tactical. Be more tactical at find out what your customers want. Have you ever asked your customers what they want? Like, hey, things are getting tough. I'm going to call all my people. Let's sit down as a group. Let's go over some financial stuff for you guys, so it's cost effective for you guys, because ultimately your customer is not a dollar. Your customer is a relationship. So if you're going into a customer and you're building that relationship with that customer, in the bad times they help you out because they still have to do their projects. They still have to. But here's the thing: is you don't gouge them because prices are going up. You literally sit down with them and say, hey, this is the price. I think it's either best to wait, or the prices are only going up. So let's figure out a way to do this, this, and this to be beneficial for your customer, not beneficial for yourself. And we talk about this even in TCS, is like, you have to be one with your customer, build relationships. That's why I think, like, with my business is flourishing so much, is because people are drawn to me because I'm a relationship builder. It's not about me. It's not about, it's about helping others. Like if I help other people succeed, it's almost like the BNI term, the old BNI term. It's like, because I've been in BNI almost 15 years now, it's giver's gain. If you give things to people, most of the time they give back. And so like, that's the mentality that I've always had is even when I got into BNI 15 years ago, is you have to give more than you get. And if you do that, you're going to be successful. And in times that are tough with your clients and stuff, communication is key. Like I always tell people, like my salespeople and everybody in my office, be one with the customer. When you show up on the job, be one with them, ask them stuff. I mean, like I get so many compliments every single day on my guys of how they talk to the customers, how they interact with the customers when they're coming home. Like, hey, do you need help with groceries? Do you need help carrying anything in? That's the culture value of, and I don't teach that. I lead that. I live a day-to-day life of helping people. And in turn, people come into my company that want to help others. And I think that's the thing is we're so quick to, like the old term, hire slow, fire fast. That is a key role that we've in the last 4 years have developed and got rid of bad seeds. Everybody always says, bad seeds are, a disease in a company. Well, the thing is you got to find out if you're watering the right seeds, because we focus too much on the bad seeds, and we got to get rid of those and water the good seeds, so they can bloom, they can flower, they can grow. And that's the mentality in my company is like, nobody has that ceiling. Everybody's going to be watered every single day and taught if you're coachable and if you want to be a part of this. But when you do that, it cultivates something in your company that's just, it's unheard of. Like if you came into my company and walked in the door right now, you would feel that. You'd feel that energy, like that love, like when you and I meet, like it's like I love every single person that I'm a part of because they're part of my relationship. It's that give and take. Like I give and then I get, so like I think that's the biggest thing in life is you can't just take all the time. And a lot of people just take. That's why people fail. because they want everything. So like in this economy, I have a lot of my competitors right now saying, you need a book now, you need a book now, you need a book now. And they're forcing these people. And my mentality is like, step back a little bit. Let's figure out what the best scenario is for their customer, not the company. Because ultimately, if you give to your customer, you're going to get way more out of them. So I think that's I wanted to make that point, because it's like, it's so like the scarcity mentality right now is just, it's crazy. People are literally locking down things. They're raising prices like 75%, which is unheard of gouging. You can see it at the pumps. You go one city, it's, $3.50, $4, right in between $4. Then you got one that's $4.50, $5. It's like, what makes the difference? I mean, there's no difference. I mean, if you're talking a couple of days, yeah, maybe they got a price jump when they got the gas, but we're not talking 60, 70, 80 cents. They're just doing that just because the norm, everybody's doing it. So I wanted to tell that, because the scarcity mentality is getting really bad. And I want everybody to focus on the real end goal, is just building relationships and really just getting through these bad times. Because if you have no relationships with your customers, you might as well close shop now, because it's going to be really tough to get through the bad times. So you got to ramp up and start doing that. And if you can do it, you can succeed. If you can't, and you don't want to build those relationships, why do people not do relationships? Because it takes time, right? Because you have to devote a lot of time. Well, you know what? Sometimes that time is valuable, and sometimes that time really sets apart everybody else. So if you can make an hour call with somebody, or if you can, meet somebody out to help them with the job, even though you have no intent to get the job, that's the relationship building. And then also ultimately you end up getting from that later on in life, because I always say, God's watching. If you're helping others, he's gonna fill your cup and make sure that you're getting filled. So I think that's the biggest thing is don't have that scarcity mentality right now. Step on the gas and up your motives and up your goals and targets, and bring your team along with you.
It's huge too, because you see so much of the scarcity mentality, especially like I'm seeing it in my subcontractors, and not all of them. We got a lot of great subcontractors we've worked with for a long time through the hard times and the last hard times we all faced too. But I'll use this as an example. My trust company just sent new bids to me on 2 new houses we have coming up, right? Well, one of them I had to revise, and this is a 5,200 square foot house. The original bid was about $80,000 for trusses. So I go, hey, I know this probably needs to be revised. This was back in the fall. Lumber index has gone up. Just send me. I'm expecting, maybe $5,000 higher or whatever. So 80,000 was the original bid. The next bid I got was $188,000.
See,
I said, is this? I called the guy. I go, is this right? And he goes, well, the guy that does our pricing, he's the manager, and he's scared right now. He's scared. Boom, just what you just exactly what we just were talking about. And so I said, listen, I want now pricing. I don't want in the future pricing, because who knows what's going to happen in the future. So if you guys want to keep work, I go, are you trying to get rid of all your builders? Because that's what you're going to do. You're going to lose every builder you got. And the desperate ones are going to stick with you if they got customers willing to pay that. But I'm not going to let my client pay that, So long story short, the guy ends up coming back to me, and he ends up dropping the price like another $10,000 or something, but it's still high. I'm like, all right, see ya. We'll finish up the trusses we have with you. Obviously, they're pricing for the ones we got, but these future ones, we're going to have to figure out something. So I'm having to shift and do all these things too. I jokingly always say, if I don't have a full head of gray hair by the end of this year, I'll be shocked, because all the shifts I'm having to make for our customers. But we will survive, like you said too, because we're customer driven. Customer matters to us. I could have easily said, yeah, 180,000, whatever. The customer's going to pay for it, this and that. It is what it is,
Yeah, because you're a cost plus, right?
Yeah.
So like, I mean, you have no. I mean, you can literally say, hey, this is the price. But
I can, but I'm not going to do that.
But here's the thing, and then you'll lose customers. You'll be known as that guy that, look at this. Why is this guy charging some? Why isn't he? Because your job is to really go out get the best price.
And that's the thing too, being cost plus. That's what a lot of people's arguments to a cost plus builder is. But I always tell them, I go, if you got a builder that actually has a conscience, that cares, that has a reputation, it's a whole different story. I could easily take those bids and say, yeah, it is what it is, sign off on them. And I said, and I could be like, when the time comes when we have to order those trusses, they'll probably quote them lower. I could say stuff, but I don't feel comfortable signing those bids and being responsible for those numbers because that's my customer. I'm defending them. So we're willing to go all the way up to South Carolina to look for trusses right now to better the price for the client, or conventionally, we're talking to our framers about being able to conventionally frame trusses like they do up north. They don't do that a lot down here.
I have a really good contact for you in West Virginia for trusses. So we're gonna
we'll talk after because they got a truck too, and they're willing to ship down because it's
my really close buddy Eddie Brown. That's what he does for a living. So I will definitely introduce you to him because he has a nonprofit called Giving Words, and it's he helps single mothers out, and he's got a big heart, and I think that. There's a reason for things that, like you just said, there's a reason when people say things that, that just jumps out at me. Like if I can save you, 50% or, even 75% with going for him.
You might have a bunch of builders calling you now after this podcast after you just said that.
You know what? I mean, it's all about who in this business and having the relationships with good people. Mm-hmm. Because here's the thing is I'll tell you a really quick story is really nothing's quick with me, but it's one of those things that like 4 years, November 17th of 17, I was an alcoholic. I literally was drinking almost every single day, and I chose. And then the reason why I chose to do what I did is quit drinking is because I knew that I was heading down a road of pretty much a bad path. When in November 17th, I was like, you know what? I had to have some non-negotiables. And my non-negotiables were fast food, see you later. No fast food anymore, done. I literally non-negotiable. Second was I'll never have a drink again. Like no wine, no drinking, no nothing. I literally quit everything. And then no pop. So like I have no pop at all. So like my thing was if I do that, I will lose weight. And I was an alcoholic, but I also was over 350 pounds. And so now I'm probably right around 220, 215. I range in there. But here's the thing is that mentality, I was hanging around with the wrong people. And what I mean by that is I was hanging around with people that were going to the bars for doing business. And so like this transitions into you are the people that you hang out with, And so what I said was I have good relationships with people. So when I send people like yourself or other builders on this podcast to this person, that is instilling a relationship with everybody else. And then now I'm helping him succeed. Yeah. Okay. And all he has to do is build that relationship with you guys, and he locks in a customer for life. Now he's thriving in his business. He's growing his business, and he's able to, not have that ceiling, because we're so stuck. Like sometimes like we feel like we're just moving at this. It's so fast. We can't do anything. And that ceiling is right there. And we're like, I'm so overwhelmed, but go outside and walk outside and say, and just take a breath. And you're like, you feel better instantly. You're like closed into a room. That's what you need to build your company with is you have to step outside the walls sometimes and make things happen. And that's what I always say is if you're in a relationship with me, I have a giver's game mentality. I will give you as much as possible with no exception of trying to get anything in return. And the reason why I do that is because I was never given that starting this business. Nobody helped me besides my employees. My employees are my one reason why I'm successful in this company. If I had zero employees, I would not be successful. And so I owe everything to my employees. And my employees show up every single day, and they have this fight and they have this grit. And the reason why they do that is because my mission and their mission align, because they want to succeed. They want to see BSI succeed. And when we succeed, everybody succeeds. And I say this all the time is like, we give bonuses out here. We give, very large bonuses. We actually give things to people on a continual basis. I like, you know, you wanted to ask me about, you know, helping, you know, people out. I love helping my employees out. I love coming in at 4 o'clock in the morning and cooking breakfast for them. You know, it's just one of those things that I give them, you know, some food to go on in their day. And it's because I appreciate that, you know, because ultimately as a boss, your people are your everything. If you have no people, you have no business. So like that is the mentality I said is like, they mean everything to me. And I let them know that every single day. I give hugs. I can actually name like every single one of their kids. Like I know them more than they know their self sometimes, because they come in and they're just struggling and I can see it right through it. Like I had yesterday, I had a woman in my office who was just struggling, and she lost her pictures on her SIM card. And it was like 11,000 pictures, and it was her pictures of her mother and her wedding and all this other stuff. And she was just bawling at her desk. And I went over there and I'm like, what's going on? And I pulled her in my office and I was talking, and she's like, I just lost all my pictures. She's like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, listen, we got this. So I had my media guy, my full-time in-house media guy that does everything for me, and my internet guru, website guru, everything. He goes in, dude, 2 hours, he had 99% of those pictures back, and it only cost $100. So that's the mentality is you have to help people. Yeah. And then she'll never forget that. Like that is a pivotal moment that she could have said, you know what, I'm done. I'm pissed. I'm going to go home. And it could have affected her whole week, her whole month in this company. But what I did was I noticed, I saw her. And that's the thing I say a lot is, and I even post a lot of stuff online is like, I see you. Like I see people out there, and most bosses don't do that. Most bosses don't see people. Most bosses they're always looking past people because they think, well, that person's beneath me. That person is like, you know, that person just makes this much money an hour. That's the wrong mentality. You will never succeed in life if that's how you look at people. Mm-hmm. You have to look at somebody in the eye and you have to say, literally, I love you and I will do whatever it takes to help you out. And that's the mentality you have. And if you have that mentality, dude, you can run a $100 million company. You can run a $1 billion company. You can run a, you know, $300 billion company. The thing is you have to have that mentality. You have to have that drive to do that. And I think that, you know, as long as you have the right people in the seat, you'll succeed. And I truly mean that. So I wanted to share that because it's like, dude, people are, you know, like people look past people, and that's not good. Like you have to be one with everybody, and your people are everything. And watch, I want to challenge somebody on this podcast. And this is what's going to help me help somebody today. Take every single employee that you have, bring them in your office and ask them what you do wrong. Because if you do that, you can now reflect on that and make things different. Yeah. Now, if you have an ego mentality, you're going to say, I don't do that. I don't do that. I don't do that, which is bullshit because your employees see you. They're watching you. Mm-hmm. So ask your employees what you do. That's what I do. If they don't like something that I'm doing, they come to me. They say, hey, Ryan, you're struggling on this. You know, I just wanted to let you know. That is a good employee. I could be like pissed off and be like, well, the other person doesn't know what they're doing. But here's the thing is that's when the ego sets in. That's when you say, well, guess what? I see that. I actually, now that I'm reflecting on it, I see me doing that a little bit. So that's the little things that you do. So I challenge all you construction, you know, people that watch this, you know, anywhere from construction people to, you know, you probably have more people than just construction people, but
it's all client based and so on, obviously.
So they have businesses too. Do me a favor, take a day or two and ask your employees what you do wrong, because then you can look in the mirror and say, I do that wrong. I need to fix it. And this is something that I do a lot of. Is I look in the mirror every single day and I ask myself some questions. You can't look at yourself in the mirror and actually lie to yourself, because if you do, you're full of shit. And I think that's the best thing about it is if you look in the mirror, and I look in the mirror and I ask, am I going to be a good boss today? You're damn right I'm going to be a good boss today, because that's what I do. I'm going to be the best person that I can be every single day. Now, if I can be the best person I can be, my employees will be the best person they can be. And I think that's what people are missing the boat on is they get so comfortable. And when they get comfortable, they say, well, they don't think they do anything wrong. I do stuff wrong every day. I struggle. Like I struggle in business sometimes. I'm like, well, if a customer doesn't pay me, now I sit back and I reflect on that and say, well, why isn't the customer not paying me? Did I do something wrong? Maybe I did something wrong. Let's figure out what we did. Instead of saying, you know what, screw that guy, I'm done with this, blah, 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 and have that mindset of like, I'm done with this. No, figure out what you did wrong. And if you didn't do something wrong, then go after it. But if you did something wrong, make it right and move on. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, in the construction world, we always tend to do that. Is like everything we do is perfect. No, it's not. No. And I think that's where we're missing the boat. And is if you can have that, that really just vulnerability with your people and say, you know what, I screwed up. An apology goes a million miles with your people. If you come in with a bad mood and you apologize to your people for the next day, they don't even remember that you were in a bad mood. They literally say, you were fine. No, you weren't. But when you apologize to them, it changed the whole mentality of the whole room. That's the key in life is we all make mistakes. It's how you rebound from that and how you literally get that vulnerability out and say, you know what, I screwed up. I say this to my controller all the time, because her and I bicker a lot, and it's like, we're like two peas in a pod. It's like, I get you. I get when I get really ruffled up and she does too. And we apologize, we hug, we do all that stuff because it's like, we're family. And when you're family, you argue, you have confrontation all the time. But as long as it's good confrontation and you're learning from that, you can grow as a business, you can grow as an individual. And I think that's what, you and I are both, we're in a school together called the Top Contractor School. And to be honest with you, that's the best thing that I've ever got involved in, because it's like-minded people like yourself that is in this group, and we're all together as one. If we have an issue, we ask everybody about the issue. And then if somebody's gone through it, they're easy to say, hey, this is what I did. This is what helped me get out of this. This is what I struggled with. That is so valuable in life. I would pay millions of dollars if I had that in the beginning of my business, because I probably wouldn't have failed as much and I probably would have learned faster. So if you have these groups out there, if you have these impactful groups and these teachable groups, you should be a part of them because you're only going to grow from it. People are like, well, I'm not going to spend this kind of money. This is ridiculous. Dude, if you don't spend it now, you're going to lose later. Mm-hmm. So you got to spend the money now. It's a very valuable lesson. Pay me now or pay me later. That's the thing is like, you will make mistakes. You will not have that support. And that's what we're doing life together. You and I, we're the same, we're in Arate together. We learn a lot from Arate. We're in, Top Contractor School. We're in Warriors of Christ. I mean, we've got so many groups that we're in, but how valuable are those groups on a weekly basis?
Yeah. Huge.
So, I mean, that's the thing in a nutshell. It's like, it's having that company mentality and having that family mentality, because our three core values right now are integrity, family, and culture. I mean, like that's our mission. That's our passion. That's what we do. Do we do things when people aren't watching? Absolutely. We're going to do everything to the best of our ability. And we do make mistakes, and it's how you rebound from those mistakes.
The brush on what you said, and to wrap this up, because I know you got to get going here too soon, is it's so huge, and that's the problem with contractors too. And I've talked about clients need to find a contractor that's willing to help and do all the things you said, and have an actual, they care, and a lot of contractors are just turn and burn, make that check, go to the next one. I don't have time for that, so on. Like even the little things, like keeping the peace around you, keeping everybody at ease around you as you're building, like where I'm at too, it takes us 2 years to build some of these projects, and we are surrounded by neighbors that we got to be at a good, we got to be good with, like I was putting in a sign and I cut into a guy's cable line, didn't even realize I did it. I left, and the guy's calling office screaming, saying, "You effing cut my cable," this and that. I go, okay, I could approach this as a dickhead and be like, you know what, screw you, your attitude, this and that, blah blah blah. But I was like, you know what, I got to be married to this guy for the next 2 years next door to me. I'm gonna approach this. So I told Liz, my fiance who works with me, I'm like, I'm gonna go over there. She goes, "You're going there?" I was like, yeah, I got to talk face to face. I can't do phone. I can't do email. I was like, I need to talk to him face to face. So I get there, he's throwing his arms up, this and that. And then he sees me get out of the car. I'm a bigger guy, I'm 6'2", whatever. And this guy's a little bit smaller. And he all of a sudden kind of was like, but I just walked up to him and he's cussing and he's like, "My effing, who put the sign in? Like, they need to be." I was like, "Sir," I was like, "The the company's Comcast." I go, "When they bury these lines, they literally barely put them under the ground. Nobody can see them. So if you're putting a shovel in the ground and you hit it, it's really nobody's fault." I was like, "What I'm going to do for you is I'm going to have it repaired right away. I don't have a splice kit, but we'll get it. I'll get it. I'll call my excavator. I know he has one and he's always around." So I called my excavator. He's like, "Yeah, I'll be there in 10 minutes. We'll get it done." So I just kept talking to this guy and talking to him, having a good conversation with him. At the end of it, he became my buddy. We're like talking about stuff and his house and how his build went. And he was telling me about his builder and his bad experiences and the good and so on. But long story short, it was just in that moment, taking the time to get to know somebody that I'm going to be in a relationship with throughout my build with my guy, to keep peace between our customer and him. And then even we just had another instance where across the street from another build we're doing, one of the trailers for a piling truck backed into, he had these little curbs he had custom made and it backed over his curb and broke it. I could have easily said, "Hey, that's in the swale. It's city property, not our problem. You shouldn't have that in the swale area on the way down. Tough luck." But I said, "You know what? I'll call my pile guy. I'll have him throw some concrete on there and I'll spray paint it white for you. And it's not that hard of a fix." He's like, "Well, this part was broken too." Then he started pushing it a little bit because I know that other part wasn't broken, but we throw concrete on it or whatever. I called my pile guy. My pile guy was like, "Screw that. Why would we?" And I was like, "I don't know what other builders you build for or work, drive for, but that's not who we are."
Yeah.
We are the type to go back and do this stuff to keep the peace, to keep everybody happy. That's our reputation. That's who we always have been at RK Ryman. And he goes, "Huh. All right. Well, I love working for you guys. You guys pay me right away. You guys have been great to work with. Yeah, I'll send a guy over there whenever I can to fix it." I said, "I appreciate that." So
and that's building that relationship. I mean, that's what we have with our customers. It's like, if we do something wrong, we're going to make it right. Yeah. And I'll take that even in farther with you is like next time just show up with a basket, with something and just give it to them and say, "You know what, for your inconvenience here, you and your wife, with a basket of a gift card to go out to eat and, a couple other little things." And that steps it even further. And you're like, "Listen, it was my mistake. But here you go. It's on me because you had to waste your time now. So here it is." And you literally can spend 50 to $100 and you literally transition that into now that's your biggest fan. So when you're doing work, he doesn't even look at you. He doesn't look at the details. He doesn't look at if something goes on your yard. He knows that you're going to take care of it. And so that's the whole transition is like treating people like others want to be treated, So like, I deal with that all the time. It's like people will call me up and cuss and do all this other stuff. And I'll be like, "Listen, time out. What's going on?" Because sometimes they just want you to listen. Yeah. So if they want to vent, I'm the person to call me. I'll listen and then I'll do whatever it takes to make it happen. But sometimes you just got to listen. Too many people want to open their mouths and they want to say, "Blah, blah, blah, blah." Well, then now it's even worse. Now you pissed off that customer, and now that customer is going to be on your butt. Now he's going to be calling the city every 5 minutes when you do something wrong. If there's 2x4s in the street, or if there's dirt in the street, or like it's a nightmare. So what you just said right there is a testament of exactly what you do. Is you take care of your customers first. And you also, on the other hand, is you don't worry about losing a couple bucks because you're going to gain another customer in the long run. So that's so valuable. And I wanted to repeat that because, your fan base and your podcast people, dude, I bet you probably half of the people aren't doing what you do.
No.
So if they can change that mentality, then they separate themselves from different people. So, I just I wanted to share that real quick, but I just it's been a great podcast, man. I love what you're doing, and I really appreciate you having me on, man. I'm really humbled that you actually had me on, because I like I said, I've been doing my podcast, the power of helping people, and it's life changing. It's life changing for me, and it's life changing for my listeners, because I'm telling stories that impact thousands of people. And my mission was just to help one person. But if I'm putting out these podcasts and one person, and then another person, then another person shares it, you're influencing a ton of people. And ultimately, if you can impact people to get off the couch, get off doing something, or maybe even making a little change with their employees, having their employees in and telling them what's wrong with you, that will change your whole company. That will change your whole culture. And if that changes your whole culture, watch what happens in your company. Your company will go 1 million to 3 million. Your company will go 3 million to 6 million. Your company will go 6 million to 10 million, and then 10 million to 15 million, 15 million to 20 million. And that's the key. Because once I started getting off my butt and stop being that person that, even though I was helping people all the time and I was that guy, I was the person that was saying I a lot. I was the person that was saying, I've made it here, this is what happens. No, I didn't make it. My employees made it. So when I shifted that 4.5 years ago, when I quit drinking, November 17, my company went from nothing to where it is today. And it's amazing how many people I got. Like 4 years ago, I had 8 to 10 people, and now I have almost close to 50 people. Wow. And then we're looking for 10 to 15 more people. And when I put out ads, and this is what I wanted to say, when I put out ads right now, everybody always says, I can't find people. I'm getting applications in every day, because here's the thing, is if you can't find people, it's not the people. You don't have a people problem, you have a marketing problem. And if you're not telling people what your people do and what you do, and you're just showing pictures of your machines, and you're showing this, or you're showing this, you have to really just divulge all your people and what they're doing and how they're doing it, and the videos, and, getting interviews from your people, and just really praising your people constantly. That's what people want. And so when you come into the company, it's not a facade. You come in here, I am right at the front door saying, this is what we're going to do. And I'm here for you. My door's open every single second. Come in. If you need something to talk about, let's talk it out. Let's figure it out, and let's move on. So that's the key, is I wanted to share that with you, because it's so valuable to really just have that communication with your people and your customers, because your people pretty much are your subs and your customers. So you have to be one with those. And if you're one with those, you're going to be very successful. And I watch your videos all the time, dude. You are on a path of growing multiple figures really quick, because of your customer service, the way you treat people, the way you have a heart with your clients. Yeah. Like I'm not gonna, deal with 100% raise. I'm going to say, listen, I'm going to go elsewhere for my customer. Now, if I can't get that from anybody else, then at least you tried and you worked for your money, because then you can go back to the customer and say, listen, I've exalted every single option that I've had. This is what I can do. This is what I can do. And this is what I can do. What do you want to do? And then they say, well, I trust you, because you literally gave them the option to do that. So
I know we can probably go on for another hour, and I know you got to get rolling.
Have me back on again, and we'll discuss about other things.
You got time for, because usually I ask, well, you kind of answered my last one. What about you personally? You've built an amazing company that continues to grow each and every day. What lessons have you learned on your journey that'll help us and our own businesses grow?
Well, I'm going to tell you one thing that really made me who I am today with my company, is opening your damn ears and shut your mouth. Because if you can do that, watch what happens. Because listen, you don't have all the good ideas. You might think you do. That's the ego talking. But your people are there, and they can tell you. Doesn't mean you have to agree with every single thing that your people do, but you want the input for them, because they're the people that are going to grow your company. Not you. You can be that initiator. You can be that number cruncher guy. You watch the numbers, and if it's in the budget, you can do it. That's fine. That's real business. But if you can give that valuable things to your people. Like, I don't micromanage anything. All my people in my office know I don't micromanage. I'm not going to stand over your back watching every move you make, because I give them the freedom to make the mistakes on their own. And if they make the mistakes on their own, they can learn from them. People are human. They make mistakes. Don't get down on people for making mistakes, because what happens is if you get down on people for making mistakes, they will never do anything different. They will stay the same because they don't want to go outside their box, because they think they're going to get yelled at. And in the construction world and in the asphalt world and every tradesman out there, that's what people do wrong, is they shun them and they put a ceiling over them and they can't do it. So that's the valuable lesson that I've learned in the last 5 years. And I think too is with quitting drinking, my eyes have opened up more, and I actually am listening now. And I love to talk, but I also listen. So when somebody's in here, like I tell my kids, do you want me to listen or do you want my advice? Yeah. And that's the thing. That's the mentality you should go with every single day, not only with your kids, but with your employees, with your customers. And if you do that, sky's the limit. There's no ceiling. If you do that, there's no ceiling. You could, like I said, you could be $100 million company yourself in 10 years if you wanted, but you can't have that ceiling.
Yeah.
So
love it.
That's what I get. That's what I got for you. So,
and then wrapping it up, last question. And this is what this show's all about. What exactly do people need to look for when choosing a contractor, and why should they choose Ryan Austin as their go-to?
So I actually wrote a list for this, because this is what I look. This is what I look for. So when you're choosing a contractor, it's pretty basic, but this is what we look for. Are you licensed? Are you insured? Because ultimately, if you don't have those two things, it's cheap. It's going to be cheap, because those things are the two most expensive things in my company. Also, you got to make sure they have workman's comp. So that's basically insurance. So general liability, workman's comp. The reason why you do that is because if they hurt themselves on your property, you're liable, not the contractor, if they have no insurance. Secondly, they have to be trained crews. So if you can't talk to everybody that's working on your property, there's probably a testament to the owner that's probably not a good thing. Every single one of my people in my company can talk to any customer, and I don't care. It's because we make sure that they're right to talk to and they're educated enough to be able to talk to customers. So that's one of those things. Turnaround time is my favorite. If you ask for a bid and the contractor tells you when they're going to get it to you and they don't get it to you, that's a problem. That's a red flag. Boom. Their integrity shot. Things happen. They forget. So call them and make sure. But listen, when they say stuff, they should do it. That's the integrity piece. And communication is my favorite. The reason why I said that is my last one is because if they can't answer their phone and they can't call you back, that's a red flag too. You got to run. And I think what separates, BSI from everybody else, in the asphalt world and in our area, and what people will say is they can feel the family atmosphere and they can feel the culture through them. Like literally, I don't have one person that if I want to close a deal, if I want to close a big deal, I bring them to my office, because they literally will come in my office and they will be family. They will be greeted. There's no show. There's no oh, somebody's coming in, we got to do it. No, it's literally genuine every single time. And people come and go. So it doesn't matter who's here, but every single person will come up to you and they will meet you and greet you like your family. And I think that's the key is that's why we have that as a core value is family, culture, and integrity. If you have those three things, you're unstoppable in the industry. And you know that. I mean, culture is key. If people say, oh yeah, culture, this is the new word, culture. Dude, the culture started back in 2004 when I started this company, and the culture is only getting better. In the last 5 years, the culture's gotten so good. You cannot ever stop culture. You have to, that's why I have it as a core value. You can never stop culture, because culture, once you stop culture, it ruins the whole company. So you have to constantly, and that's holding people accountable. That's holding people accountable to a standard higher than themselves. And I think that's the key is that's why everybody comes to BSI. It's not because of price, because we're not the cheapest out there. Just like you're not the cheapest out there, but guess what? Your customers value you. Your customers know that they can trust you. Your customers know that when you say you're going to be there, you're going to be there. And that's the key to business. And that's the key to life.
Yeah.
If you're in a relationship and your buddy is saying, hey, I need help, and he can't count on you, you're not there, guess what? You failed him. Just like the same thing with a business. If you can't honor what you say you're going to honor, you failed that customer. And then that customer now is not going to use you. It's the infamous saying, if you do a bad job, the people tell 10. If you do a good job, they might say 1. They might tell 1. That's the key in life, is just making sure everybody's happy and everybody streamlines, and then everything's good. So I wanted to let you know that, but I have to jump off here, but I appreciate you, dude.
Real quick before you go, where can people find and connect with you?
So I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram. Instagram is the CEO Dad +4 or real Ryan Austin. And then everything else you can find Ryan Austin on LinkedIn and TikTok.
And the podcast too.
Yeah, and I'll send you the links so you can put it on this, the links here, so people can find me. But yeah, check out my podcast, man. It'll change your life. I mean, I've got some really, really good people on there. I mean, my guests are top notch. So I'll have to have you on my podcast here soon.
Yeah,
so
I'd love to, man. I'd love to. Awesome, man. I appreciate your time today, and thanks everybody for listening.
All right, man. Take it easy.
All right.